My fiancée told me her parents hated me for being too broke, so I saved for months to buy a suit and show up to her family dinner. When I walked in, her father shook my hand and said, "Didn't expect you tonight, considering what she told us." Then he pointed at the man sitting next to her and said, "That's the guy she said she's marrying." So I pulled out the invitation she gave me and placed it on the table. I'm not even sure how to start this without sounding like the dumbest guy alive. But if I'm going to tell this straight, I'll tell it the way it actually happened. This whole mess started because I genuinely thought I was getting engaged to the woman I'd spend my life with. And the only reason I'm posting this is because I can't shake the pit in my stomach that's been sitting there since that night. The night her father said those words that made everything click in a way I wish it never had. So yeah, here's some context before I get into the part where everything fell apart. I'm 29, US-based, work as an HVAC tech. It's solid work, pays okay, but I'm not rolling in money. My fiancée, well, ex-fiancée now, Emily, she's 27, works in marketing, grew up way more comfortable than I did. And that difference always kinda hovered in the background, but she swore up and down it didn't matter to her. Swore her family just takes a bit to warm up. Swore I was overthinking it when they didn't show up for our engagement party. Swore they were just traditional when they didn't congratulate me directly. And because I'm an idiot in love, I believed her. About a month before all this went down, she told me her parents wanted to finally have a formal family dinner with me at their home. She said her mom felt bad for being distant and wanted a clean slate. I remember actually feeling excited. Like, genuinely excited. I'd met them twice before, but both times were quick, polite, surface-level stuff. I thought, okay, maybe this is the real start. Maybe I get to be part of a family that does dinners and birthdays and has a damn lake house. She texted me the invitation. A literal formal invite. I didn't even know people did that for a dinner that wasn't a wedding. It had my name on it, the date, the address, and this line at the bottom, dress formal. I stared at that part for a good 5 minutes because formal is not exactly a word my closet recognizes. But I wanted to make a good impression. And Emily knew that. She knew every insecurity I had about money, the stupid jokes I've heard from coworkers about dating out of my tax bracket. And she always told me, my parents will love you once they get to know you. So I thought, all right, I'll show up looking like I belong at that table. Now, I don't spend money on myself. Ever. I've had the same 3 work shirts for years. But I spent weeks picking up extra shifts, late-night emergency calls, weekend maintenance checks, anything to save up for a suit that wouldn't make me look like the usher at some mall prom. I wanted something clean, something nice, something that said, I'm here, I'm serious about your daughter, and I intend to actually build a life with her. I didn't tell Emily I was doing all that. I just said I'd figure it out. She kept brushing off the dress code anyway, saying, "You'll be fine, babe, they're not expecting the Met Gala." But the invite said formal, and I follow rules when someone else's family is involved. Fast forward to that night. I'm in the car outside their house, this massive colonial-style place with white pillars and a door that probably cost more than my truck. I'm sweating through this brand new suit because I haven't worn something this structured since my cousin's wedding 6 years ago. I text Emily, "Hey, I'm here." She replies, "Great, just come in. We're in the dining room." No kissy face, no can't wait to see you. Nothing. But I brushed it off because she was with her family. I walk up, ring the doorbell, and her dad opens the door almost immediately, like he'd been standing there waiting. He gives me this smile, but it's stiff. The kind of smile people at country clubs give you when you don't look like you belong near the golf carts. I say, "Thanks for having me." He shakes my hand. Firm grip, too firm. Then he says it. This weird, loaded line that instantly puts a crack in my confidence. "Didn't expect you tonight, considering what she told us." I blinked because I genuinely thought I misheard him. "What she told you?" He steps aside, letting me in, and the house smells like roasted rosemary chicken and expensive candles. "We'll talk inside," he says. I follow him down this hallway filled with framed family photos, her smiling at every milestone I never got to be part of. And there she is at the end of the dining table, hair curled, wearing this dress I'd never seen before. Like she was dressed for a photo shoot, not a dinner. But the thing that hit me wasn't her. It was the dude sitting next to her. Suit, tie, groomed beard. Watch that probably cost what I make in 2 months. He stands when I walk in, like he's being introduced. And before I can even process what I'm looking at, her dad pats him on the shoulder and tells me, "That's the guy she said she's marrying." I swear it felt like someone stuck a fist through my ribcage and just held on. I didn't move, didn't speak. I think my brain just stopped functioning. Because who the hell says something like that? And who the hell is this guy? Emily looks at me with this shocked expression, but not the kind you get when something goes wrong. More like, she wasn't expecting me to understand what the hell was going on this fast. So I take the envelope out of my jacket pocket, the formal invite she sent me, with my name printed in gold lettering, and I set it on the table. Not tossed, not slammed, just placed it gently like it weighed nothing. Except it felt like lead in my hand. Her dad stares down at it, then looks back at me like I'm some interruption to a show he already bought tickets for. And Emily finally says, barely above a whisper, Why did you come?" That was the moment I realized I didn't know her at all. I didn't answer her right away. Honestly, I couldn't. It felt like every sound in the room dropped out except the ringing in my ears. I kept staring at her like I was waiting for her face to crack, for her to laugh, for someone to yell that this was all one massive prank. Something. Anything. But she just sat there, hands folded in her lap, eyes darting between me and the guy next to her like she wasn't sure which one of us she should be performing for. Her dad cleared his throat. Maybe we should sit. I didn't sit. My legs wouldn't move. My brain was running through every conversation Emily and I had ever had, every reassurance she'd ever given me, every moment she made me feel like I was building something real with her. And it all suddenly felt rented, like none of it belonged to me. So I swallowed, looked at her, and said the only thing that made sense. You invited me. She flinched, just a tiny twitch, but I caught it. She always did that when she got caught in a lie. It was this subconscious thing she never managed to train out of herself. I didn't think you'd actually come, she said, voice low. The guy next to her shifted awkwardly, like he wasn't sure if he should introduce himself or disappear under the table. His eyes kept shooting toward her dad, like he needed permission to speak. Emily's mom sat at the far end, hands tied around her wine glass, her whole expression screaming that she wanted to be anywhere but here. I finally sat down, mostly because my legs felt numb. Her dad sat too, but he did it slowly, deliberately, like he was giving me time to process something that he already understood completely. I looked at the guy and forced out, "Who are you?" He straightened his tie. "Evan. Just Evan. No explanation. No context. No apology. Just a name," said the way rich people introduce themselves when they assume you already know who they are. And then Emily finally said it, the line that made my jaw clench so hard I thought a tooth might crack. He's the person I've been seeing." My vision actually blurred for a second, like my brain just checked out to protect me. "You mean since before or after you asked me to marry you?" I asked. And I wanted her to say after. God, I wanted her to say after, even though the pit in my stomach knew exactly what she meant. She didn't answer. Her dad let out this tired sigh, the kind people use when they pretend they're disappointed in the situation, but you can tell they're not surprised at all. "This dinner was never meant for you," he said quietly. "Emily told us you two had separated." Separated. That word hit harder than anything else. Like I was some ex she hadn't bothered blocking yet. I stared at her. "You told them we broke up." She nodded once, quickly, like ripping off a band-aid. "When?" I asked. She didn't answer. "When?" I repeated, louder this time. She swallowed. "About 2 months ago." 2 months. That lined up a little too neatly with when she started getting busy with work, when she stopped wanting to come over as much, when she suddenly needed more me time, when she stopped planning the wedding, when she canceled our weekend trip because she was exhausted. I chalked all of it up to stress. I thought I was being supportive. Turns out I was just being cheated on. Her mom finally spoke. "Maybe this isn't the best time to." I cut her off. "Why did you send me the invitation?" Emily stayed quiet, so I said her name sharply. "Emily." She closed her eyes like she couldn't even stand to look at me. I didn't think you'd come. I sent it before I told them about Evan. Before we had the conversation." "What conversation?" I asked. She winced. The one where I said maybe the engagement was moving too fast." "I don't remember that conversation," I said. "Because you didn't understand what I meant," she snapped suddenly, like she'd been holding in this irritation and it finally slipped. "You just kept talking about picking dates and venues. I didn't know how else to slow things down without." She trailed off. "Without what?" I asked. She didn't answer. "Without cheating?" I said. Her mom gasped softly. Evan stared at his plate. Her dad rubbed the bridge of his nose like this was all beneath him. Emily opened her eyes and looked at me with this strange mix of guilt and annoyance. "I didn't cheat," she said, voice wavering. "We were emotionally disconnected. We weren't communicating. I felt like I was carrying the relationship on my own." "By seeing another guy?" I asked. She shook her head. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Evan and I connected through work. It just felt easy. I didn't have to explain things. I didn't feel judged." "I never judged you," I said. "You didn't have to," she whispered. I felt inferior. Like I was dating someone who didn't want to grow. I didn't want a life where I'd have to keep pretending money didn't matter. There it was. The truth. Or at least the part she was willing to say out loud. "So you replaced me with someone richer?" I said quietly. "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. "It's not about money. It's about lifestyle, goals, values." I looked at Evan. He looked at me. There was no hate in his eyes. No smugness. Just discomfort. The kind of discomfort rich men get when someone forces them to acknowledge the consequences of their convenience. Her dad leaned forward. "Son, I think it's best if you let this go with some dignity." That was the moment something in my chest cracked. Not fully broken yet, but split enough that I felt the draft rush in. I stood up slowly, pushed my chair back, and reached for the invitation I had placed on the table. But then I stopped. I let it sit there. "I didn't bring that to prove anything," I said, voice low. "I brought it because I thought this night mattered." I looked at Emily. Really looked at her. And for the first time since I'd met her, I didn't see the woman I loved. I saw someone who had already made her choice long before she gave me the illusion of one. Then I walked out of the dining room without looking back. But the night wasn't done with me yet. Because as I reached the front door, I heard footsteps behind me, and someone grabbed my arm. The hand on my arm wasn't gentle. It wasn't violent either. It was that firm, panicked grip you use when you're trying to stop someone from walking into traffic. I turned around expecting Emily, because despite everything, some stupid part of me imagined maybe she'd want to explain or apologize or something. But it wasn't her. It was her dad. He stood there in the hallway, blocking the door like he had the right to decide whether or not I left the house. His expression wasn't angry. It wasn't pitying. It was something in between, like he was weighing me out of obligation, not care. Hold on, he said quietly. I pulled my arm back. For what? You want to tell me how I'm embarrassing myself? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced back toward the dining room, then closed the door halfway behind us so we were out of view. He didn't shut it completely, though. Power move. Keeping it open enough to signal he wasn't having a private conversation, just a controlled one. I didn't want it to go like that, he said finally. I laughed under my breath. You seemed fine with it. His jaw tightened. I was surprised you showed up. Emily said you two had ended things months ago. We were under the impression tonight was. He paused, choosing his words carefully. A formality. A formality, I repeated. Meaning what? Introducing her new fiancé behind my back. His eyes flicked away. That was the first time I saw even a crack in that reserved country club persona. Look, he said, lowering his voice. You're a decent young man. But Emily, she's always had a certain path laid out. A certain expectation. Expectations, I said. Right. Rich family expectations. This time he didn't flinch. He met my eyes head on. You know that's part of it. I should have walked out. I should have ignored him. But I stood there because I needed to hear what type of story they had been telling themselves. What version of me they'd crafted to make all this convenient. So what? I asked. You all just decided I didn't fit the mold? He let out a slow breath. It's not just about money. Then what is it? He hesitated. A long, telling hesitation that said more than anything that followed. You don't come from stability, he said. I felt something burn its way up my throat. I wasn't ashamed of my upbringing, of parents who couldn't hold down jobs, of a life where bills were always late, of learning early how to stretch food and do repairs yourself. I wasn't ashamed, but hearing him say it like it was a genetic flaw made something inside me snap. So I'm disqualified, I said. He didn't deny it. And that hurt in a way I wish it didn't, because it meant Emily hadn't loved me in spite of all that like she said. She had loved me temporarily, as something to grow out of. She did try with you, he said. That line lit me up. Tried. I repeated, voice sharper than I meant. Like I was some charity project? I'm saying she wanted things to work. She did. But the gap was large. I took a step back. You don't even know me. He didn't argue that either. Just looked at me with this weird, softened expression, like he was trying to be kind, but didn't know how without sounding condescending. You're a good man, he said, but not the right man for her. I let that sit between us. Let it ring in my ears the same way his first sentence had. Then, from behind him, Emily's voice came through the half-open door. Dad. She stepped into the hallway, Evan trailing behind her like a shadow who didn't want to be caught on the wrong side of anything. Her face was pale, makeup too perfect, eyes too wide. The kind of face people make when they realize the mess they created is now tracking mud through the house. Her dad moved aside, giving her space. She looked at me, but not the way she used to, not with familiarity, not with connection. She looked at me like she was searching for the version of herself that had once loved me and couldn't find it. I didn't want you to hear it like this, she said softly. Then how did you want me to hear it? I asked. Because last time we talked, we were still engaged. We weren't, she whispered. Not emotionally. That wasn't an answer. That was a loophole. A coward's loophole. She stepped closer. We were fading out. You know we were. You barely talked about anything real anymore. I talked, I said. You stopped listening. Something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe. Or annoyance. Hard to tell with her. I didn't leave you because of who you are, she said. I left because I outgrew who we were together. I shook my head. You left because you wanted a man like Evan. Someone who fits into your world. Someone who makes your parents relax. That's not fair, she whispered. You're right, I said. It's not fair. Because I loved you. I built my life around you. And you were building an exit. She blinked fast, like she was fighting tears, but I'd known her long enough to recognize they weren't about me. They were about guilt, about the discomfort of being confronted. Evan finally spoke, voice soft. I'm sorry, man. I didn't know the situation was this complicated. I stared at him. He seemed genuine. Naive, but genuine. And that almost made it worse. You don't owe me anything, I said. You didn't make any promises to me. Emily swallowed hard. Her dad stood stiff beside her. Her mom hovered in the dining room like a ghost who didn't want to be caught in the photos. I looked at the three of them, the family I thought I would join, and felt the sharp, cutting realization that I had never been in the running at all. I was just the placeholder until the real candidate arrived. You all made your choice, I said quietly. So I'm making mine. I opened the door. Emily reached out, not to stop me, but more like a reflex, like her body recognized me even if she didn't want it anymore. But her hand stopped halfway, hanging in the space between us. Please don't leave angry, she said. I'm not angry, I said. I'm done. And for the first time all night, she believed me. I stepped onto the porch, the cold air hitting me harder than expected. But the door hadn't closed yet, because someone else wasn't finished with me. A voice called out, wait, please. And this time, it wasn't Emily. I froze on the porch, hands still on the railing. The voice wasn't sharp or urgent. It was tired, heavy, the kind of voice someone uses when they know they're crossing a line, but do it anyway, because they can't ignore the weight they've been carrying. It was her mom. I turned around slowly. She was standing halfway in the hallway, halfway out, like she didn't belong fully to either world, hers or Emily's. She had her cardigan wrapped around herself with both arms like the room behind her had turned cold. I need a moment, she said softly. Emily and her dad both looked at her like they didn't understand why she would follow me out, but she didn't even acknowledge them. She stepped onto the porch with me and gently closed the door behind her. Not all the way, just mostly. A soft click. We stood there in the dim porch light, the quiet settling between us like dust. I know you don't owe me anything, she began, voice steady but frail around the edges. But I need you to hear something from someone who isn't trying to pick a side. I didn't move closer. I didn't trust myself to. Listen, I said, I really don't think now. She held up a hand. It surprised me how calm the gesture was. How deliberate. Please, she said, just let me speak. Then you can leave and never see us again if that's what you want. I shut my mouth. She took a slow breath. What happened in there wasn't fair to you. None of it. And I'm not going to pretend it was. My stomach twisted. It was the first honest thing anyone in that house had said all night. She didn't fill the silence, didn't rush herself. She just watched her breath curl in the cold night air before continuing. Emily didn't start seeing Evan because she didn't care about you, she said. She cared. I know she did. I saw how she talked about you in the beginning. How she softened. She loved you. Truly. Then why all of this? I asked. Her mom rubbed her thumb against the edge of her sleeve. Because she's my daughter. And I know her better than she knows herself. I waited. She always chooses the version of her life that looks easiest on paper, she said. The path with the least friction. The one that keeps everyone calm and avoids embarrassment. Dating me was embarrassing? I asked quietly. No, she said quickly. Not to me. Never to me. But to her, dating someone whose life didn't match hers made her feel exposed. Like the whole world could see the seams. I didn't know what to say to that. It wasn't hateful. It was just brutally honest. She told me about you, her mom went on. How patient you were. How grounded. How. Her words, not mine. You made her feel like she didn't need to impress anyone. I scoffed. Guess that changed. She got scared, her mom said. Scared that if she committed fully to a life with you, it meant turning her back on everything she grew up believing she was supposed to want. So she chose the safer option, I said. Her mom nodded slowly. She convinced herself Evan was safer, simpler, more aligned, and she never stopped to ask whether any of that made her happy. I crossed my arms. Then why did she pretend? Why propose? Why drag this out? Her mom looked toward the dark yard, her expression pained. Because she wanted to want you. Because she loved the idea of loving you forever. Because you made her feel something real. And real is terrifying to her. I let out a breath I'd been holding for minutes. It came out shaky. Her mom stepped closer, not touching me, just near enough to speak gently. I'm not defending her. I won't. What she did was cruel. And the way tonight played out was unnecessary. That word was too soft for what happened, but I didn't interrupt her. But I want you to know this, she said. You weren't a placeholder. You weren't some stepping stone. You were the first man who ever made her question the world she grew up in. And she loved you for that. She still does. In some stubborn corner of her heart, she doesn't want to admit exists. That doesn't undo any of it, I said. I know. She nodded. It's not meant to. We stood there for a moment, the porch light buzzing faintly above us, a moth tapping helplessly at the bulb. Then she said, Can I give you a piece of advice? Not as her mother, just as someone who's lived long enough to see patterns repeat. I didn't answer, but she continued anyway. When someone chooses comfort over love, she said softly, let them. They're not choosing against you. They're choosing against the parts of themselves they aren't brave enough to face. I stared at her. This woman who barely spoke during dinner was now telling me the truth Emily never had the courage to. And one more thing, she added. Don't carry her decision like it's a reflection of your worth. You showed up tonight in a suit you worked hard for. You showed up with sincerity, with intention, with love. That is not weakness. I swallowed hard. My throat felt raw. Why are you telling me all this? She closed her eyes for a second. Because I wish, God, I wish, Emily had chosen differently. And because I don't want the last thing you walk away with to be their version of the story. I nodded slowly. She stepped back toward the door. I'm sorry, she said. Deeply, truly. Thank you, I managed. She opened the door, but paused before stepping inside. You deserve someone who doesn't flinch when you show up for them, she said quietly. Remember that. The door clicked shut behind her. And suddenly, everything felt painfully, overwhelmingly silent. I stood there for a long time, staring at the driveway, at the suit I'd worked so hard to buy, at the house that had just broken whatever naive piece of me still believed love was enough. Eventually, I made myself walk down the steps. But halfway to my truck, I saw a figure jogging toward me from the side of the house. Not Emily. Not her dad. It was Evan. And the look on his face said he wasn't done either. I should have expected it. Of course he wouldn't just stay inside and play the silent, polite replacement. Evan jogged toward me, stopping a few feet away like he didn't want to invade my space. His breathing was uneven, and not because he'd run. More like he was bracing himself. Hey, he said, hands on his hips, trying to look composed but failing. Can we talk? I almost laughed. You really think there's anything left to say? He shook his head. Not like that. I'm not here to defend anything. I need you to hear something from me. I didn't walk away. Mostly because I wanted the night to end clean. No loose threads, no assumptions. Fine, I said. Talk. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know she was engaged. I held his stare. And after you found out? He winced. I found out today. I blinked. Today? Yeah. His voice cracked a little. She told me she was ending things with you months ago. She said you were still living together technically, but that it was over emotionally. She painted this picture where you were checked out, like you were dragging your feet about everything. My jaw tightened. Convenient. He nodded, shame written all over his face. I should have questioned it more, but I didn't. And that's on me. Silence settled between us, heavy enough to press on my ribs. He took a small step closer. Look, man, I'm not trying to ease my conscience. I know this sucks, and I know I'm part of why it sucks, but I need you to hear this. I didn't come here tonight expecting you. She told me you two were done, and that tonight was her way of finally establishing honesty with her family. I almost choked. That's what she called this. His face twisted. I know. It's messed up. Messed up. I repeated. She dragged me into a dinner where her dad introduced you as her future husband. And she watched me stand there like an idiot while everyone stared at me like I'd crashed my own funeral. He didn't dispute that. Didn't defend her. He just nodded slowly, like each word punched him in the gut. I'm sorry, he said. Genuinely. I would have walked away if I knew. I'm not trying to be the guy who steals someone's partner. I didn't want that. I ran a hand across my face, exhausted. Then what do you want now? He took a moment. To make something clear, I'm not staying with her. That caught me off guard. What? He let out a shaky breath. I'm not doing this. I thought she was honest. And maybe she can be, but tonight showed me she's willing to manipulate whatever story she needs to avoid discomfort. If she can do that to you, she can do it to me. And I'm not signing up for that kind of life. For the first time all night, I felt something shift in my chest, something like validation, like relief, but sharp-edged and bitter. So that's it. I asked. You're walking away? He nodded. Yeah, I know it won't fix anything for you, but I can't pretend I didn't see what I saw. I stared at him for a long time, the cold air stinging my eyes. I didn't hate him. I wanted to, but I didn't. He was just another casualty of her indecision. Another person caught in the storm she created. He stepped back. You're not the loser here. I hope you know that. I didn't answer. Didn't trust myself to. He shoved his hands into his pockets and walked back toward the house, shoulders tense, head low. He didn't go inside though. He walked around the far side, disappearing into the dark like he wanted nothing to do with her family either. When he was gone, the silence washed over me again. Not angry silence. Final silence. I walked the rest of the way to my truck, the suit jacket pulling tight around my shoulders. My hands shook as I unlocked the door, not from cold, but from the adrenaline crash that hit me all at once. When I sat inside, everything felt smaller, quieter, like my whole world had been condensed into the few feet around me. My phone buzzed. I considered ignoring it, but something in me needed to know, needed to see whatever final blow was coming. It was a text from Emily. Just one line. I'm sorry you found out like that. No explanation. No ownership. Just a half apology wrapped in cowardice. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. You didn't break my heart. You revealed it. I didn't wait for her reply. I blocked her. Then I breathed. Really breathed. Deep, steady, honest breaths I hadn't taken in months. The drive home felt surreal. Streetlights sliding past, radio low, the suit stiff against my skin. Every few minutes, the image of her father pointing at Evan flashed in my head, the memory hitting like a slap. But then her mother's voice would echo through the memory, grounding me. You deserve someone who doesn't flinch when you show up for them. I pulled into the parking lot of my apartment, sat in the truck for a few minutes, and let it all settle. The grief, the humiliation, the relief, the clarity. And then something strange happened. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I didn't fall apart. I just exhaled. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't waiting on someone else's choice. I wasn't trying to prove myself, or measure up, or mold into a world that didn't want me. I was free. Not healed. Not okay. Not anywhere close. But free. I walked inside, loosened the suit tie, and set the invitation, the same one I'd left on their table earlier, on my kitchen counter. I'd grabbed it on my way out without even realizing. The paper looked cheap under the kitchen light. Flimsy, like the relationship it had represented. I stared at it one last time, then dropped it into the trash. Not out of anger. Out of closure. And for the first time since she put that ring on my finger, I felt like my life wasn't ending. It was finally beginning. If you made it all the way to the end, thanks for sticking with me. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the story, consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. It helps me share more stories like this. Thanks.